and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaley Gray, and I am super excited today to have my friend Abigail Ness on the vlog. She is an adventuring CEO minimalist, and we connected through social media, and she just really has these fun reels and just has like amazing content that she's always putting out. And she's in Idaho, which is amazing. I laugh because people always say that whenever I say I'm from Iowa, they're always like, oh, the place with the potatoes. And it's like, no, that's Idaho. We're the place with the corn. So anyways, I love it. I'm trying to think. I think I've maybe met one other person from Idaho, but I don't know. I'm trying to think. Maybe in college. I think there was a few people from Idaho that I'm in college, but
it's kind of small.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually like they're not kind of coming over to like the Midwest as much. So
yeah.
But anyways, she is amazing. And the topic that we're sharing today isn't super bubbly and like exciting to maybe like talk about, but it's a topic that I really felt on my heart that needed to share to my viewers. And when I found Abigail and it was just something she's passionate about sharing with, I just was like, I need her on the vlog. She said yes, so I'm so excited for that. And I'm gonna also put her social media below so that you guys can connect with her, and be sure to also follow me on my other social media platforms and subscribe to this channel because I would love for you to be a part of this. And Abigail, would you just tell us about yourself a little bit and just kind of share your story?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's an absolute pleasure. And I love seeing your Instagram too. You do a lot of awesome videos. Like, yes, that is what singlehood sounds or looks like and feels like. So great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But my story, so I'm an Idahoan. I grew up in Idaho. I have 6 siblings, and my parents were great parents, and they were always, entrepreneurial focused, and they always inspired us to go live your dream and do your thing. Actually, that kind of rhymes. I like that.
I like that.
Right? And so I loved growing up with my family, and, we were all homeschooled, but yet we had such fun opportunities to go travel and for work experiences. And so traveling is an adventure in any way possible, even if it's like here in Idaho, going on hikes or, across the globe. But yeah, it was a good upbringing, and going to college, getting my bachelor's degree and loving life. But then I fell in love with someone that was not someone that I really wanted to end up with overall, but I can jump into that story right now if that's
I would love to. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. So since I had a great upbringing, good relationship, not everything was perfect, but I was going through college, and when I was studying abroad, my sister and one of her friends, they're like, hey, my sister was like, oh, I have a single sister. This other gal was like, oh, I have a single brother, like they should connect. But I was in Norway, or we kind of connected a little bit before that, but I was in Norway and just living my life. But then this guy was kind of getting to know, and eventually I just started to fall in love with him. And I, came back from Norway, and I was like, oh, I'm in love. I don't care who knows it. And so then we eventually met in person, and, it was, love at first sight or whatever, however you want to say that. But there also were some things that I was really questioning and wondering about. But I had really had great opportunities to have great relationships in my life. My parents have an amazing marriage, but then things started to kind of waver. He ended up moving here, and there were still some things that kept being checked in my heart. Like we had talked about before, there was some kind of red flags that I started to turn to yellow flags, because I thought, no, he's doing better. He's growing, he's healing, as we all are.
Yeah.
But those were a bit more extreme. But I just thought, no, it's okay. We're all growing. This was like my first like really, long distance relationship. And then, then he moved here, and I just kept throwing things under the rug. Oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So
the good in people, you know,
Yeah.
like you always want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep, exactly. I was like, he can't be that bad. Like, you know, he's serving the Lord, serving in the church, right? So I just kept throwing those things under the rug. I was like, oh no, he's fine. So then eventually, kind of fast forwarding a few years, he ended up being an extremely manipulative man, abusive, or like verbally abusive and controlling. He ended up being a narcissist, and those are a lot of very, very bad lifestyle choices that come along with that. Yeah. And throughout that whole time frame, it was more based on just trying to hide what was really going on. I didn't know to the extreme of what was actually going on, but I wanted something more than what I had at that time. I was like, well, I'm sure when we get married, then he'll really be even better. He'll be even more serious to like make sure his life is on track. You know, I kept lying to myself. But then what I also kept doing was I kept hiding what I felt. As a narcissist, they don't want your opinion, and they always change it to make it that you're the bad person, that you're the one with the bad ideas or opinions. And so anything I would bring up, I was the crazy one, I was the weird one, I was the insane one, and he did use all those words. And it was never about like me in any way besides to control me and manipulate me.
Does that like hurt your identity then? Like if you're using those words a lot?
Yeah, it became my identity because he kept taking my identity. He kept taking who I really was. I did grow up quite conservative and quite some people use the word sheltered. I don't like to say that because I wasn't as aware to what craziness is going out in the world. Like I knew there was, you know, crazy things, good and bad and all that, but I wasn't always exposed to all these awful things. And I was like, that's not being sheltered. That's very smart things to not like, I don't have to be exposed to everything. So he used that as leverage as well, because I didn't know a lot about like sex or like drug paraphernalia or the drug scene in general or the drinking scene in general. I just had very general thoughts and perspectives on it. Yeah. And he used that against me, and I kept losing my identity. You know, I loved, you know, traveling and adventuring, and I was very motivated with, again, like I was saying, with my dad being very focused on entrepreneurial and just enjoying what you do with your work, and he kept taking that away from me. I mean, my identity wasn't my own anymore or the Lord's. It was what he said I was, which that's never a healthy relationship to have anyway. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What about like in the midst of all of this going on, like family, like did they reach out? Like, were you still close with your family? Because it sounds like you guys have been super close throughout it. Was there some split between that, or?
It became really bad. At first, you know, we were all trying to not necessarily help him, but he had come from a rehab center that he had graduated, and then he was working in that ministry. So his whole process was a bit more rocky and rough than maybe some people's story, which is fine. I always, or not always, but I tended to go toward more of the bad boys of like, oh, you have a terrible history, I want you, which is fine. Like people's history is part of their history and their past, but it's all about what you're doing right now to heal, to grow from it, and not let that past determine who you are and what you're going to become. But so my family was very encouraging and wanted to like make the relationship work, or like, you know, he was hired by one of my family members, and, you know, just trying to like, yeah, sure, let's do this. But then as things kept getting worse, the attitude, the the torment that they could see me going through, they were like, wait a second, what's going on here? Why is this happening? Why are you being so controlled and manipulated? Like, I thought you guys were going the direction of, you know, wanting to be more serious in the relationship. You guys were talking about marriage, and now what's going on? So they did try to intervene quite a few times, but my heart was already basically destroyed. I didn't have a perspective anymore. My only perspective and thoughts were what he was saying, which was like, no, I'm fine. I'm doing great. I'm working on this, you know? Yeah. But deep down, and this is kind of where it really gets painful, is that deep down in my spirit, I knew something was wrong. I knew I was being controlled and manipulated, but when you get in that deep, you don't really know to that level. Like, you already love them, you want everything for them, you'll do everything for them. So when my family started like questioning that, I was like, you're questioning me, I'm not crazy, he's not crazy, you're the crazy one, right? I just kept on reflecting everything back to them, which is also a red flag. And so my family's relationship, or my relationship with them, started to drastically go further and further away. I really didn't have a relationship with my family anymore. It got to such a bad spot that I almost didn't even go to my sister's wedding because of how awful it all was. And we are very close family. I mean, we are very close. So for that to get to that extreme, it was, and I was proud of it. I was like, I'm not going to your wedding. I'll show you love, you know? So they tried, but unfortunately, when someone is trying to get someone out of such a bad situation, there's not always, they can do things, but if, like myself, if I wasn't open to it, then there's not a lot they can do besides pray, which is a lot. It's a big deal. Yeah.
So you seem like a very joyful and happy person now, but you have gone through a lot. I mean, I know there's definitely more to the story that we had kind of talked about initially, but how did you find healing from that? How did you get out of that? Like, what is the sevenfold return that God has restored in your life?
Right. So we were together for like 5-ish years. We were engaged during that time frame, and everything was put on hold. And then we were going to start buying a house together. We literally put in an offer, but thankfully things fell apart. So by that time, when it was basically toward the end of our relationship, it was right around the time when I said, I'm not going to my sister's wedding. And so then he continued on what he was doing. And so then fast forward to like what actually happened was he went into prison again, jail again. He was arrested. And then things kept coming up. And I thought, no, it still can't be that bad. I'm sure he didn't do that much, but things kept coming up. And so we ended up breaking up over the phone while he was in jail, and I was left with nothing. I had just given this guy my, 4 or 5 years, really 5 or 6, because we were kind of getting to know each other before dating. So then the whole picture was like 5 or 6 years. I gave him that whole chunk of my life. And I had never wanted to give my body to anyone before marriage, and I gave him that as well. So when things fell apart, I had no money left. I was in debt over $43,000. I had no money in savings. I almost lost my job because I was such in an emotional and mental distraught that I could hardly even keep a job. I had to move in with my brothers because the living situation I was in wasn't working out. And I was so scared and fearful to do anything in life. I was scared to walk to my car because my ex ended up being a drug dealer the entire time. Again, he was sexually and emotionally abusive, and it was I had nothing left. And I, didn't have a relationship with my family anymore or my friends, because when you're in a narcissistic relationship, they take you away from those that love you, that have a voice in your life, because then that works against what they're trying to do to someone as myself. So I had no friends. I had no relationships anymore. They were still kind of waiting on me, like, I know this is going to happen. Like, I know this is going to break up sometime. So they'll be waiting for me. So I had absolutely nothing left, and no identity, nothing. And I was questioning God. Well, maybe he's not even real. And then it got to the spot too, that I wanted to kill myself. And I was starting to plan that. And so, thankfully, he was out of my life, and he ended up being in a different state. And I started to go to counseling. My sister basically had to force me to go to counseling, because I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. But I couldn't even live a day by day, because it was I didn't have emotions left. I didn't have anything left. So I started to piece my life back together, one little by little. And this is where the restoration of God comes through, is I started getting counseling, like a third party. So that way it wasn't necessarily just family speaking into my life, because I couldn't even handle that. Mm-hmm. So I started going to counseling. I got a job that's like a good, stable job. I had to even key fob in and out of the building. So then mentally, like, I knew I was safe and secure. And so I got that, and literally like the day after it all happened with my ex and us breaking up, I called my family and I said, guess what? Here's what happened. And so I told them, hey, we broke up. This is what happened. And I know inside they were leaping for joy, because they had literally been praying for this to happen for years, because they didn't know the extent of how awful it was, but they knew it was awful. They knew it was bad. They knew it was not of the Lord. So I have a big family, so it took me a while to call everyone. I was like, don't call so-and-so yet. I haven't called them yet. Like, let me go. But they welcomed me back with open arms. Like, it wasn't even a question. And they knew I was going to have to go through healing, and they knew I needed to heal so I can have that relationship with them again, and apologize, and put those emotions forward. And it was step by step. So that scripture where he says, like, I restore it sevenfold, literally it has happened with my family, with finances, with my job. Now I'm my own CEO of my own company. I do that full time. Like, the furthest thing away from being in debt as you could possibly be, traveling the world and working for other companies of however I want to do it. Like, God has restored in literally every single way. I'm still single, but he's been restoring my heart and my perspectives. I'm not a man hater, because I easily could have gone that route. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Ooh, it gives me goosebumps and tears.
And when I had just seen little sneak peeks or snippets, I guess would be the correct word, of your testimony on your social media, I just was like, wow, just to see what you have gone through to where you are now. If you don't believe in God, I don't know how you can, because
seriously,
to have gone through all of that and still have joy and just the restoration and the healing, I think that's just I'm just in awe. I'm like, wow, God. And I'm sure I'm excited for your family, and just, probably just that restoration that you guys had. I believe in the power of prayer. And that's why, for someone on the outside, that's sometimes, like you said, the only thing you can do is to be praying for that person. And something I wanted to ask you too is for somebody like me, or that's on the outside, I know you kind of said, when they're saying something to you, there's not a lot that they can do for that. But, while you're in that healing process, how can you be a friend or a family member or something? Do you have any tips or anything of what you needed in that time? I know everyone's different, but what someone could do to reach out or help that person?
Yeah. And it is kind of difficult. And I, like I was saying earlier, it's kind of hard because I mean, my entire family like tried to have like interventions with me. One of my sisters, I have 4 sisters, and one of them actually had me meet with a gentleman that works in the rehab community. And he himself had been through a lot of difficult scenarios. And he was even explaining as respectfully as he could of like, hey, so when someone's going through this kind of stuff and acting and doing what your then boyfriend was doing, he was like, that's not healthy. He was explaining just what you go through. And I was like, I don't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. He's not that, so I was like, now reflecting back even on that, I'm like, it's so hard. So all that to say is that when you speak with someone that is going through that, until they actually want to change or realize the reality, it really is hard. So I would say the main thing is to focus on praying, and even praying ahead of time before you either, hang out with the person or meet with them, and see what God can maybe lay on your heart to like plant that seed. Because maybe that's not the time that say if you have that conversation with someone that's like you making that happen, but like planting those seeds. So when, someone like myself, when I started to realize how bad it really had gotten, then I was like, you know what, so-and-so was right. Remember when they said, this or that, like, oh, that's right. But planting those seeds is really big. But then also allowing them an opportunity to like share deeply what's going on, because a lot of people in these situations, and with myself, I kept lying to myself and putting down my own opinion and my own spiritual checks of like, I know this is wrong. What he's doing to me physically and emotionally, I was like, this isn't right. But I kept on using the excuses. So when you're having those conversations with someone, it's good to like help with those reality checks of like, hey, so if he is saying he loves you or wants to marry you, why does he keep making these choices and keeps going into jail? Not like in a demeaning way, but just, hey, like, Jesus doesn't love us like that. So why is it okay for him to love you like that? Like, kind of like those scenarios. And again, it might not be a lightning bolt at that moment, but it's going to get their heart and their mindset seeing that, or eventually they will. So, and just loving on them, like, hey, I'm here for you no matter what. I love you. You can always call me, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I think that's so important. And, maybe, somebody out there listening, they might have somebody that's in that same situation. And what would you say? Just have them to keep reaching out to that person, keep showing them that love. And
yeah, exactly. And just keep encouraging them of like, hey, if you're like, literally ask them, hey, if there's something going on in your spirit, in your gut, like, you are confident, you are a strong woman or a man, or a man, like in a reverse situation, but like your word, your attitude does matter, your perspectives, like, asking them like, hey, I would love to hear how you are feeling about this. Are you excited? Are you scared? Are you fearful? So that way there's like an open door to share, like, you know what, I am fearful, and that way they can share more. So that's another way to encourage if someone does have someone like that in their life, of just making sure that that's an open door to that friend or family member, knowing like, let's chat this through, like, let's talk about this.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Abigail, for just coming on and sharing your testimony. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And I hate that you had to go through that. But what I love is that you do have a voice and you are encouraging people out there. And so thank you just for being bold and being open and willing to share. So
thank you. Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. And I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you next week. Bye.